Have you ever been betrayed by a family member who pretended to love you only to stab you in the back when it suited them? If you faced something similar and turned the tables with clever, calculated revenge, this story will hit home. Hit that like button if you've been underestimated and subscribe to Revenge with Noah for more tales of family feuds, shattered trust, and sweet payback that lingers long after the dust settles. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 55 years old, a software engineer at a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle, Washington. For the past 28 years, I've specialized in cybersecurity, building firewalls, detecting vulnerabilities, and exposing hidden threats before they can do real damage. It's not the flashiest job, but it's steady and it pays the bills. I've never been the type to chase promotions or brag about my code. I let my work speak for itself. In a world full of loud egos and viral hacks, I've always trusted quiet vigilance. Watch, wait, and strike only when the evidence is ironclad. That's how I've survived in my field, and as it turns out, in my family too. I've been a husband to one woman, Laura, and a father to her son from her first marriage, Alex. He was 6 when I entered the picture, a wide-eyed kid with a mop of curly hair and the knack for taking apart gadgets just to see how they ticked. By the time he was 9, he was calling me Dad without prompting. And at 20, I stood beside him at his college graduation, beaming like he'd always been my blood. But Alex didn't come alone. He came packaged with his grandfather, Victor Hale, Laura's father, a retired real estate mogul who built his empire flipping properties in the Pacific Northwest. Victor wasn't overtly hostile. That would have been too crude for a man of his stature. No, he was subtler, more insidious. He undermined with a smile, dismissed with a chuckle, and controlled through whispers that echoed louder than shouts. Victor had this way about him, tall, silver-haired, always in tailored suits, even at family barbecues. His voice was smooth as aged whiskey, but his words carried barbs. "Ethan, still tinkering with those computers," he'd say, as if my career was a hobby, not the thing that kept our family afloat during the dot-com bust. He never yelled or argued. He just planted seeds of doubt. To Laura, he'd murmur about how a real provider might aim higher. To Alex, he'd reminisce about his own glory days, implying I was a placeholder in their story. I endured it for years, not because I was weak, but because I loved Laura and Alex more than I hated his games. Silence was my shield. Observation, my weapon. It was Victor's 70th birthday gathering that changed everything. Laura insisted we attend. "He's family, Ethan. Let's make an effort." We drove to his sprawling estate on the outskirts of Bellevue, a mansion with manicured lawns and a view of Lake Washington that screamed old money. I wore a simple polo shirt and slacks, nothing flashy, and brought a bottle of mid-range scotch I'd researched. You'd probably call it adequate. We arrived at 5:45 p.m., the sun dipping low, casting long shadows over the driveway lined with luxury cars. Victor greeted us at the door, his wife Evelyn by his side, her pearls gleaming under the chandelier. "Ethan, glad you could make it. Traffic from the office must be a killer." His eyes flicked to Laura and Alex with genuine warmth, but for me, it was always that polite chill. Inside, the dining room was set for 12. Crystal glasses, linen napkins folded into intricate shapes, candles flickering like they were auditioning for a magazine spread. Alex took a seat next to Evelyn, Laura beside him. I ended up across from Victor, under a massive portrait of his late father, a stern industrialist who glared down as if judging my every move. The evening started predictably. Victor regaled us with tales of his latest property deal, a waterfront condo flip that netted him 6 figures. Evelyn chimed in about her charity luncheons and bridge club victories. Relatives nodded along, laughing at his jokes. I smiled, passed the breadbasket, and kept my comments minimal. Then came the cocktails. "Ah, I almost forgot," he announced, standing with a flourish. "I've prepared a special toast for the occasion, my signature old-fashioned with a twist." He vanished into the kitchen, returning with a polished tray holding 12 glasses. Most were uniform, but two stood out slightly, one with a faint swirl of something extra at the bottom. He handed them out personally, lingering over mine. "This one's for you, Ethan," he said, his smile too wide, too rehearsed. The drink looked innocent, amber liquid over ice, garnished with an orange peel. But as he set it down, I caught it, a subtle residue on the rim, a powdery sheen that didn't belong. In my line of work, I've seen digital poisons, malware disguised as harmless files. This felt analog, but no less sinister. I'd read about it once in a forensics forum, sedatives slipped into drinks to discredit or disable. Victor didn't know I'd volunteered at a local crisis center years earlier, helping victims of domestic sabotage identify tampered substances. I didn't react. Instead, I stood. "Let me help distribute the rest," I offered, voice steady. He paused, eyes narrowing fractionally. "No need, I've got it." But I insisted, taking the tray smoothly. As I turned, I swapped my glass with his, quick, seamless, like rerouting a data packet. No one noticed. We raised our glasses. "To family," Victor toasted. I echoed it, but didn't sip. 40 minutes later, midway through the main course, Victor's face paled. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands trembled as he set down his fork. "Excuse me," he muttered, bolting for the bathroom. The retching sounds echoed down the hall, violent, uncontrollable. Evelyn rushed after him, concern etched on his face. Laura looked worried, Alex confused. I sat there, my untouched glass gleaming innocently. When Victor returned 15 minutes later, supported by Evelyn, he was ashen, mumbling about bad shellfish. But his eyes locked mine across the table. And in that moment, he knew. I knew he knew. Dinner wrapped awkwardly after that. No cake, no speeches. We left early, Laura fretting about food poisoning. In the car, she said, "That was odd. Dad's usually so robust." I nodded. Maybe something didn't agree with him. Alex chimed in from the back. "Yeah, weird timing." That night, after Laura and Alex went to bed, I retreated to my home office, a cluttered space with dual monitors and stacks of encrypted drives. I wrapped Victor's intended glass in a clean cloth and stashed it in a lockbox. Then I texted an old contact, Mia Reyes, a former colleague now running a private lab specializing in toxin analysis. We'd worked together on a corporate espionage case years back. "Mia, Ethan here. Need a discrete test on a sample, urgent." Her reply came fast. "Send it over. What's the story?" I kept it vague. Possible contamination, off the record. 3 days later, the results pinged my secure email. Traces of lorazepam, a benzodiazepine, dissolved in the liquor. Not lethal, but enough to induce nausea, disorientation, and blackout-level fog. Enough to make someone seem unreliable, perhaps miss a key event, like Alex's upcoming startup pitch to investors, where I'd been set to introduce him as his tech-savvy dad. Victor hadn't aimed to kill. He wanted to sideline me, paint me as unstable, erode my place in the family narrative. I stared at the report, not in rage, but resolve. Victor Hale had tried to delete me like a buggy file, but he'd overlooked one thing. In cybersecurity, the best defense is a hidden counterattack. Victor was a master of subtle warfare. He didn't storm, he infiltrated. Over the years, I'd cataloged his tactics, the accidental exclusion from family photos, the backhanded compliments at holidays, like, "Ethan's so dedicated to his little job," the quiet suggestions to Laura that I might be holding her back. I'd brushed it off, but now it formed a pattern, a script designed to isolate. Digging deeper, I accessed public records. Nothing illegal, just thorough. Victor's prescriptions. He'd been on anti-anxiety meds for years, rotating doctors across clinics in Seattle and Tacoma. Lorazepam showed up repeatedly, stockpiled beyond need. Not addiction, strategy. He'd hoarded control, doling out doubt like pills. I kept this from Laura and Alex for now. They adored him, Laura out of filial duty, Alex out of hero worship. Confronting him directly would backfire. He'd spin it as paranoia. No, I needed them to discover it organically, like uncovering a virus in their own network. The first ally surfaced unexpectedly. Her name was Sophia Grant, Victor's former assistant from his real estate days.
Victor Hale didn't crumble the way most would expect a man of his stature to fall. No shouting matches, no tearful confessions. Instead, he retreated into a calculated stillness, like a chess grandmaster studying the board after a bad move. I'd seen this before in my work. Hackers who, when exposed, didn't panic, but doubled down, probing for weaknesses in the system. Victor was no different. He'd agreed to my terms that night in his study, confessed to Evelyn, step back from Alex's life, treat me as family. But his eyes told me he was already rewriting the script. I didn't expect compliance. I expected a counterattack. And in cybersecurity, you don't just block a threat, you anticipate the next one. It was a Tuesday, 10 days after our confrontation, when the first ripple hit. Laura came home from a lunch with her cousin Vanessa, her face tight with unease. "Dad called a family meeting," she said, setting her bag down harder than usual. "Sunday, at the estate. He says it's about clarifying things for the foundation's future." Her voice carried a tremor, not of fear, but of suspicion. Alex, sprawled on the couch with his laptop, looked up. "He's up to something, isn't he?" I nodded, sipping my coffee. He's not the type to let a checkmate stand. I spent the next 2 days digging deeper, not into Victor's present, but his past. In my line of work, the most dangerous exploits come from vulnerabilities you didn't know existed. Old code, forgotten backdoors. Victor's history was my target. I started with public records, cross-referencing property deals from his early career. Most were clean, but one caught my eye. A 1992 land purchase in Tacoma, tied to a shell company called Evergreen Holdings. The name was generic, but the filing listed Victor as a silent partner alongside a woman named Patricia Langston. The name rang no bells, but the transaction felt off. Undervalued land flicked for triple the price within months. Shady, but not illegal. Still, I flagged it. Next, I tapped Sophia Grant, Victor's former assistant, who'd shared the damning security footage. Over a secure call, I asked, "Ever hear of Patricia Langston? Worked with Victor in the 90s. Sophia paused, then exhaled sharply. "Yeah, I remember her. Quiet, sharp, handled his contracts for a year or two. Vanished abruptly. Rumor was she got too close to some of his deals, and he cut her loose." She hesitated. "Check the old employee records from Hale Properties. He kept everything in a locked cabinet in his office. Paper, not digital. Old school." Getting into Victor's estate wasn't an option, but Sophia had a lead. His old office manager, Ruth, still lives in Renton. She hated how he treated people. Might talk. Ruth was in her late 60s, a no-nonsense woman with a smoker's rasp and a memory like a steel trap. I met her at a diner, bought her coffee, and got straight to it. "Patricia Langston," I said. "What's her story with Victor?" Her eyes narrowed. She was his fixer, knew where the bodies were buried, metaphorically, I hope. One day she's running his deals, the next she's gone. Victor said she relocated, but I heard she threatened to expose some creative accounting. He paid her off, or worse. She slid me a faded business card with Patricia's name and a defunct phone number. "Find her. She'll know more than I do. Tracking Patricia took 3 days. She was living under a married name, Patricia Hensley, in a small town near Olympia. I sent a careful email, framing myself as a researcher looking into Hale Properties' history. She replied within hours. I don't talk about that time, but if you're asking about Victor, I'll meet you. Not for him, for me. We met at a public library, neutral ground. Patricia was in her early 60s, wiry, with a guarded stare. What do you want to know? She asked, voice low. I laid it out. Victor's attempt to drug me, his pattern of erasing people, the Tacoma deal. Her jaw tightened. He didn't just erase people, he erased futures. Patricia's story unfolded like a slow bleed. In 1992, she'd been Victor's right hand, handling contracts for his land flips. The Tacoma deal was dirty. Victor had insider knowledge of a planned highway expansion, bought the land cheap through Evergreen Holdings, and sold it at a massive profit. Patricia had documented everything: emails, memos, even a recorded call where Victor bragged about outsmarting the system. When she raised ethical concerns, he turned on her. One night, he offered me a celebratory drink, she said. I didn't take it, saw the residue on the glass. Next day, my office was cleared out, my access revoked. He spread rumors I'd stolen client funds. I left town to avoid the fallout. She'd kept evidence, a binder of documents, including the call recording, stashed in a safe deposit box. She'll share it, but only if you're ready to use it. Victor doesn't lose quietly. I nodded. I'm ready. She mailed me digital copies the next day. Contracts, bank transfers, and a grainy audio file of Victor's voice, smug and untouchable. It wasn't just leverage, it was a map of his playbook. Sunday's family meeting loomed. Laura, Alex, and I prepared like we were heading into a penetration test. We didn't just want to confront Victor, we wanted to lock down his options. Laura reached out to Evelyn, who'd been shaken since the drink incident, but hadn't fully broken ranks. I showed her the lab report, Laura said. She didn't want to believe it, but she's starting to question him. Alex, meanwhile, was combing through his startup's investor contacts. Victor had been quietly reaching out to them, suggesting Alex's tech advisor, me, lacked the pedigree for a serious venture. Classic misdirection. We arrived at the estate at 6 p.m. sharp. The dining room was less ostentatious this time. No napkin origami, just simple place settings for 10. Victor sat at the head, Evelyn to his right, her face pale but composed. Vanessa and her husband Owen were there, along with a few cousins and Victor's sister Harriet. The air felt heavy, like a server room before a crash. Victor stood, glass in hand. Thank you for coming, he said, voice smooth as ever. There's been some misunderstanding recently. I want to set the record straight about the foundation and our family's direction. He launched into a polished speech. The foundation's legacy, his commitment to Alex's future, vague apologies for tensions. Then he pivoted to me. Ethan's been a loyal part of this family, but his recent accusations, well, they stem from stress, perhaps overwork. He smiled, all concern. We're here to support him. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. Laura's hand tensed under the table, Alex's jaw clenched. I stayed calm, letting him dig. When he finished, I stood, pulling a small USB drive from my pocket. Victor, let's talk about clarity, I said. I plugged the drive into the TV's media port, ignoring his stiffening posture. The screen lit up with Patricia's documents, scanned contracts, bank records, the Tacoma deal's timeline. Then the audio played, Victor's voice, 1992, laughing about bending the rules. Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Harriet muttered, "My God." These aren't accusations, I said evenly. They're facts. You've been manipulating people, your family, your employees, for decades. The drink you spiked wasn't a one-off. It's your method. I clicked to the security footage, the damning clip of Victor tampering with my glass. "This is fabricated," he said, voice steady but thinner. "You're a coder, Ethan. You know how easy it is to fake digital evidence." I anticipated that. I passed out printed copies of Patricia's binder, each page time-stamped, notarized from 1993. Hard copies, no code to fake. Evelyn stared at her set, hands trembling. "Victor, is this true?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Laura spoke next, voice like steel. "Dad, you didn't just hurt Ethan. You hurt me, Alex, this family. You made us doubt the people we love." Alex stood, quieter but firm. "I trusted you to guide my company. Instead, you tried to sabotage my dad." The word dad hit Victor like a physical blow. His shoulders sagged, just for a second. Harriet broke the silence. "I knew you were ruthless in business," she said. "But this? Your own family?" Victor tried one last deflection. "Everything I did was to protect our legacy." But the room wasn't his anymore. Owen, usually silent, spoke up. "You don't protect a legacy by poisoning it." The metaphor landed hard. We didn't stay long after. I left the USB drive on the table, not as a threat, but a reminder. "This stays private if you stop," I told Victor. "No more games, no more control." As we left, Evelyn grabbed Laura's arm. "I didn't know," she said, tears welling.
The obituary for Ellen Langston sat on my desk like a decrypted file I wished I could unsee. A 32-year-old single mother, dead in a 1994 car crash, officially ruled an accident with alcohol and sedatives in her system. But Patricia's words echoed. Ellen was sober. 5 years clean. The crash report, buried in digitized county archives, noted lorazepam, same drug Victor slipped into my drink, found in Ellen's bloodstream. No explanation, no follow-up. In my world, coincidences like that aren't accidents. They're red flags. Victor Hale wasn't just erasing people from family photos or corporate ledgers. His shadow stretched darker, and I was starting to suspect it hit a body count. Laura noticed my late nights in the office, the glow of my monitors reflecting off my glasses as I cross-referenced old records. "Ethan, you're scaring me," she said one evening, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What are you chasing?" I hesitated. Telling her about Ellen might shatter the fragile trust we'd rebuilt since exposing Victor's drink-spiking scheme, but keeping her in the dark felt like another kind of betrayal. "I'm following a lead," I said carefully. "Something about Victor's past that doesn't add up." Her eyes searched mine. "Is it dangerous?" I didn't lie. It could be. Alex, meanwhile, was grappling with his own fallout. His startup pitch had gone well. Investors loved his prototype, but Victor's meddling lingered like malware. One investor, a longtime associate of Victor's, had pulled Alex aside post-pitch. "Your grandfather warned us your tech advisor might be unreliable, said he's been erratic." Alex relayed this to me over breakfast, his voice tight with frustration. "I told them you're the best in the business, Dad, but why is he still trying to kneecap us?" I set my coffee down. "Because control is his oxygen. We're cutting it off, and he's desperate." I needed more than suspicion to confront Victor again. Ellen's crash was nearly 30 decades old, and evidence was thin. Patricia's binder had given me a start, contracts, audio of Victor's shady 1992 land deal, but nothing directly tied him to Ellen. I reached out to her again, this time through a secure messaging app. "Patricia, I found Ellen's obituary, the sedatives. Was Victor involved?" Her response was instant. "Meet me, not online. Too risky." We set a time, Friday, 2 p.m., a quiet park in Olympia, far from Victor's reach. Patricia looked older in the daylight, her eyes carrying the weight of secrets she'd buried for years. She handed me a small, weathered envelope. Inside were photocopies of handwritten notes, dated 1993 in Ellen's tight cursive. She sent these to me before she died. Victor was pressuring her to sell her share of a property tied to Evergreen Holdings. She refused, said she'd go public with his insider trading if he didn't back off. One note stood out. Victor offered me a drink last night. I didn't take it. I'm scared, Pat. He's not right. The date was 2 weeks before her crash. I felt the air shift, like when you uncover a zero-day exploit. Undeniable, dangerous. I asked Patricia if she showed this to the police. She shook her head. I was terrified. Victor had connections, cops, judges, real estate boards. I left town after the funeral. She handed me a micro cassette tape, barely larger than a postage stamp. Found this in Ellen's things. It's damaged, but there's a conversation. You're the tech guy. Maybe you can salvage it. I nodded, my mind already mapping out audio recovery tools. Back in my office, I worked late using open-source software to clean the tape's audio. It was fragmented, but pieces came through. Ellen's voice, tense, saying, "You can't keep doing this, Victor." His reply, calm but edged, "You're in over your head, Ellen. Walk away, or you'll regret it." Static swallowed the rest, but it was enough. Combined with the notes and the crash report, it painted a picture, not proof of murder, but a motive for sabotage. Victor hadn't just wanted Ellen's property, he'd wanted her silence. Laura and Alex deserved to know, but timing was critical. Victor's family meeting had shifted the narrative. Evelyn was wavering, Harriet openly questioning him, but others like Gerald still clung to his version of reality. Pushing too hard could alienate them, leaving Laura and Alex isolated in their own family. Instead, I focused on building an airtight case. I contacted a retired detective, Sam Torres, a former crisis center volunteer with a reputation for sniffing out cover-ups. Over coffee, I shared the essentials without naming Victor. Hypothetically, I said, if someone spiked a drink with lorazepam to silence a threat decades later, how would you prove intent? Sam leaned back, scratching his chin. You'd need a pattern, multiple incidents, witnesses, documents, and something personal. People like that slip up when they're emotional. Sam's words stuck with me. Victor's pattern was clear. Patricia, Derek, me, but something personal was the missing piece. I revisited the security footage Sophia sent me. One clip, time-stamped a week before the birthday dinner, showed Victor in his study, alone, speaking on the phone. The audio was faint, but lip-reading software pulled fragments. He's too close to Alex. Can't let him take over. The call ended with Victor slamming a drawer, a rare crack in his composure. I traced the number through a reverse lookup. It belonged to Gerald, the loyal cousin. Victor was rallying his allies, prepping his next move. Sunday arrived, the day of Victor's clarification meeting. We walked into the estate prepared, a manila folder in my bag holding Patricia's notes, Ellen's tape transcript, and screenshots of the call log. The dining room was tense, the table set for 10 again, but the mood was colder. Victor stood, projecting authority, but his hands gripped the chair too tightly. He'd heard the rumors, he began, accusations about my intentions. Let me be clear. I've only ever acted to protect this family's legacy. He gestured to Alex. Your startup, son, is proof of that. I've guided you, funded you. Alex cut in, voice low but firm. You tried to sabotage my dad, Grandpa. You don't get to rewrite that. Murmurs rippled. Evelyn stared at her plate. Victor's smile faltered. That's a misunderstanding, he said. Ethan is stressed, projecting. I stood, sliding the folder across the table. No projection, Victor. Evidence. I opened it, laying out the key pieces. Ellen's notes, the crash report, Patricia's testimony. You didn't just target me. You went after Ellen Langston, Patricia's sister, when she threatened to expose your deals. She died with lorazepam in her system. Same drug you used on me. The room went silent. Gerald scoffed, but Harriet leaned forward, scanning the documents. Evelyn's voice broke through, barely audible. Victor, what is this? He didn't deny it outright. Instead, he pivoted, voice smooth but strained. Old business disputes, misinterpreted. Ellen was troubled, unstable. Patricia's tape was my next card. I played it through a portable speaker. Ellen's voice filled the room, accusing Victor. His threat followed. Evelyn gasped, covering her mouth. Gerald stood, red-faced. This is a setup. You can't trust some old tape. But Harriet, voice steady, said, "Sit down, Gerald. I remember Ellen. She wasn't unstable. She was scared." Laura spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension. "Dad, you didn't just lie. You destroyed lives to keep control. Ellen, Derek, Ethan, who else?" Victor's composure cracked, his hands shaking. "I built this family," he snapped. "You think you'd have anything without me?" Alex stood beside Laura. "We'd have trust. That's worth more than your money." The meeting unraveled from there. Evelyn left the room, sobbing. Harriet took the folder, promising to review it with the Foundation's lawyer. Gerald stormed out, muttering about betrayal. Victor sat alone at the head of the table, staring at the documents like they were a virus he couldn't contain. As we left, I looked back. "This ends when you stop," I said. "The truth is out now. It's not going back in." Back home, Laura was quiet, processing. "Ellen's death, do you think he caused it?" she asked, voice hollow. I didn't sugarcoat it. "I can't prove murder, but he set the stage. He's done it before, and he'd do it again." Alex, pacing, added, "We need to go public. The Foundation, the investors, they need to know." I hesitated. Going public could tank the family's reputation, hurt Laura and Alex more than Victor. We need one more piece, something undeniable. That piece came unexpectedly. Sophia texted me late that night. "Check your mail. Someone left you a gift." In our mailbox was a plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single sheet, a ledger from 1994, Evergreen Holdings, showing a payment to a consultant the day after Ellen's crash. The consultant's name was redacted, but the bank routing number matched a firm tied to Victor's lawyer at the time. It wasn't proof of murder, but it screamed cover-up. Someone, maybe Ruth, maybe another disgruntled ex-employee, was feeding me ammunition. The question now was what to do with it. Expose Victor. Victor Hale didn't wait long to strike back. 3 days after the family meeting, a whisper campaign started creeping through Seattle's elite circles. It wasn't aimed at me this time. It was Laura. Anonymous emails, sent to the Kingston Foundation's board and Alex's startup investors, claimed Laura was unstable, citing erratic behavior and questionable financial decisions. One even hinted at a past hospitalization for stress, a half-truth from a decade ago when Laura took a week off for burnout. The emails were slick, professional, with just enough detail to sound credible, but vague enough to dodge legal pushback. In my world, this was a classic phishing attack, targeted, personal, designed to erode trust. Victor was playing his oldest card, control the narrative, discredit the threat. Laura found the first email forwarded by a board member asking if she was okay. She read it aloud in our kitchen, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "He's coming for me now," she said, eyes locking on mine. "This is Dad's work, isn't it?" I nodded. "It's his playbook, same as Patricia, Derek, me." Alex, overhearing from the living room, slammed his laptop shut. "We need to hit back, Dad. Go public with everything. Ellen's death, the ledger, the footage." I held up a hand. "Not yet. He's baiting us. Going public burns the foundation, your startup, everything. We need to neutralize him without collateral damage." I spent the next day tracing the emails. The sender used a burner account routed through a VPN, but sloppy metadata pointed to a coffee shop near Victor's office. No hard proof, but enough to confirm his fingerprints. Meanwhile, I revisited the ledgers Sophia's contact had sent. The payment to a consultant post-Ellen's crash. Digging deeper, I cross-referenced the bank routing number with public records. It led to a now-defunct law firm, Burke and Wells, Victor's longtime legal counsel. The consultant's redacted name bothered me. It felt like a loose thread. I reached out to Sam Torres again, the retired detective. I know anyone who worked at Wells in the 90s? I asked over a secure call. He grunted. Maybe. Let me make some calls. While Sam worked his contacts, Laura and I prepped for damage control. She met with the Foundation board, addressing the emails head-on. They're baseless, she told them, her voice firm. Someone's trying to undermine our family's work. Most nodded, but a few, loyal to Victor, shifted uncomfortably. Alex, meanwhile, reassured his investors, leveraging my cybersecurity cred to counter Victor's smear. My dad's vetted every line of our code, he told them. He's not the one you should question. It worked for now, but the whispers were spreading. Victor was betting on doubt to fracture us. Then Sam came through. Got a name, he said over coffee at a diner. Margaret Chen, paralegal at Wells in '94. She handled their off-books payments. Lives in Tacoma now, runs a bookkeeping business. She's skittish, but I told her you're legit. Margaret agreed to meet, but only at her office after hours. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed with a no-nonsense vibe. I don't like digging up the past, she said, leaning back in her chair. But Sam vouched for you. What do you want? I laid out the ledger, the payment, Ellen's crash. Her face tightened. Victor Hale, that bastard. Margaret's story filled in gaps. In 1994, she processed payments for Wells, including one to a consultant named Ronald Tate, a fixer Victor used to clean up messes. Tate wasn't just a consultant. He handled Victor's dirt, bribes, intimidation. The payment after Ellen's crash, that was Tate's fee for disposal. I didn't know what it meant then, but I kept a copy of the ledger, insurance. She slid a USB drive across her desk, scanned receipts, bank transfers, Tate's contact sheet. It's all there. But be careful, Victor's not just connected, he's protected. The USB drive was a goldmine. Tate's invoices, coded language about resolving issues, and a memo from Victor to Wells requesting discreet handling of the Evergreen Holdings fallout. It wasn't a smoking gun for Ellen's death, but it screamed intent. Ronald Tate, however, was a ghost. No online presence, no recent records. Sam warned me, guys like Tate don't retire, they disappear or get disappeared. Still, the documents gave us leverage. Victor wasn't just manipulating family, he'd been rigging the game for decades, possibly at the cost of lives. Laura and Alex were ready to confront him again, but I urged caution. I said, he's cornered. Cornered players get reckless. We need to lock him out, not just expose him. The plan was forming. Force Victor to relinquish control of the Kingston Foundation and Trust to Laura and Alex privately, without torching the family's legacy. But Victor's smear campaign was escalating. A local blog, known for real estate gossip, posted a tip about Laura's mental health struggles, citing unnamed sources. Comments piled up, some cruel, others skeptical. Laura read them in silence, then said, I want to end this, Ethan. No more shadows. We decided on a private meeting, not at the estate, but neutral ground, a conference room at a downtown law firm we trusted. Laura invited Evelyn, Harriet, and Vanessa, leaving out Victor's loyalists like Gerald. I brought the dossier, Ellen's notes, the ledger, Tate's receipts, the footage. Victor arrived last, fankled by his lawyer, a wiry man named Paul Gordon from Wells's successor firm. Victor's face was a mask of calm, but his eyes darted, scanning for exits. This is unnecessary, he said, sitting. We're family. We can resolve this quietly. Laura didn't flinch. You tried to ruin me. You've been ruining people for years. Ellen, Patricia, Ethan. It stops now. I laid out the evidence piece by piece, letting the documents speak. Ellen's hand shook as she read Tate's invoices. Harriet, voice cold, asked, Victor, did you pay to silence Ellen? He deflected. Business disputes get messy. You're blowing this out of proportion. But Evelyn snapped. You drugged my husband's drink, Victor. What else did you do? The lawyer Paul tried to intervene, citing unverified claims, but Vanessa cut him off. I got one of those emails about Laura, she said, pulling out her phone. It came from an IP tied to your office. Care to explain? The room froze. Paul stammered, then went silent. Victor's mask slipped just for a second. Anger, not guilt. I leaned forward. Here's the deal, Victor. You transfer control of the foundation and trust to Laura and Alex privately, without torching the family's legacy. He laughed, a hollow sound. You think you can erase me? I built this family. Laura stood. No, you broke it, and we're done rebuilding around your lies. Evelyn, tears streaming, added, I stood by you for 45 years. I won't anymore. Harriet took her hand, a quiet alliance forming. Victor's lawyer whispered something, and he nodded, face tight. I'll consider it, he said, standing, but don't think this is over. As we left, Laura grabbed my arm. He's not done, she whispered. I know, but we've got the upper hand. That night, a new email hit my inbox, anonymous but traceable to the same coffee shop IP. No text, just a photo, me leaving Margaret Chen's office. A warning shot. Victor was watching, and he wasn't surrendering. Worse, Alex got a call from an investor pulling funding, citing Hamley instability. The game wasn't over. It was escalating. Then came the bombshell. Sam called at midnight. Found Ronald Tate, he said. He's alive in Spokane, running a low-rent PI firm. Says he's got a story about Victor that'll make your blood run cold. But he'll only talk in person, and he wants immunity. My heart raced. Tate could be the key to tying Victor to Ellen's death, or a trap set by Victor himself.
Ronald Tate was a ghost who didn't want to stay buried. When Sam's call came, naming Tate as the fixer tied to Victor's dirty deals, I knew we were at a crossroads. Tate's testimony could be the kill switch to end Victor Hale's reign over the family, or a trap to lure us into a mistake. In cybersecurity, you don't click a suspicious link without verifying the source, and Tate was as suspicious as they come. But the chance to tie Victor to Ellen Langston's death was too big to ignore. I had to meet him, weigh his words, and decide if we'd go nuclear or keep this war quiet. Sam arranged the meeting in Spokane, a 4-hour drive from Seattle. Tate picked the spot, a rundown diner on the edge of town, 9 p.m., where the neon sign flickered and the parking lot smelled of diesel. He's paranoid, Sam warned over the phone. Expects a wire. Bring cash, small bills, $5,000. He'll talk, but only if he feels safe. I didn't like it, but I agreed. Laura insisted on coming, her face set with determination. This is my family's mess. I'm not staying behind. Alex wanted in too, but I vetoed it. Your startup's hanging by a thread, I told him. Stay here, keep the investors calm. He relented, but his eyes said he hated being sidelined. We drove in silence, the weight of the unknown pressing down. Laura clutched a folder, copies of Ellen's notes, the ledger, Tate's invoices. I had the USB drive with the security footage and Patricia's audio in my jacket pocket, plus a digital recorder hidden in my pen. If Tate was Victor's plant, I'd catch him slipping. If he was legit, I'd need every word. The diner was nearly empty when we arrived, just a trucker at the counter and a waitress wiping down tables. Tate sat in a corner booth, a wiry man in his late 60s, gray stubble, eyes darting like he was scanning for threats. He wore a cheap windbreaker and nursed a black coffee. Carter? He rasped as we slid into the booth. I nodded, sliding an envelope with the cash across the table. He didn't touch it, just stared at Laura. You look like your mother, he said. Laura stiffened. You knew her? Tate's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Knew of her. Victor talked about his girls a lot. Laura, Elaine, kept you on a tight leash. I cut in. We're here about Ellen Langston, the 1994 crash. What's your story? Tate leaned back, fingers tapping the mug. Victor hired me in '92. Odd jobs, digging dirt, paying off nosy inspectors. Evergreen Holdings was his baby, a front for shady land flips. Ellen got in the way. She had proof, memos, recordings about his insider deals. threatened to go to the feds. He paused, eyes flicking to the door. Victor didn't like threats, told me to handle her. I didn't kill her if that's what you're thinking, but I set things up. My stomach churned. I set things up? How? I asked. He lowered his voice, gave her a drink at a bar laced with lorazepam. Not enough to kill, just to disorient. She was supposed to look drunk, crash her reputation, not her car. I didn't know she'd drive that night. Laura's hand gripped mine under the table. You drugged her, she said, voice shaking, and she died. Tate looked away. I didn't plan that. Victor wanted her silenced, not dead. After the crash, he paid me to disappear, 50 grand, through Burke and Wells. I took it and ran. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. You have proof? Tate slid a battered flash drive across the table. Bank transfers, a memo from Victor to his lawyer about cleaning up the Langston issue, and Tate's handwritten log of their meetings. It's damning, but not airtight for a criminal case. Civil court, maybe. Wrongful death, fraud, but the statute of limitations was shaky. Alex, when we showed him, was furious. He gets away with this? After everything? I met his eyes. Not away. Out. We can strip him of power without burning the house down. We didn't decide that night. Back home, I verified Tate's drive, bank records, a memo from Victor to his lawyer about cleaning up the Langston issue, and Tate's handwritten log of their meetings. It was damning, but not airtight for a criminal case. Civil court, maybe. Wrongful death, fraud, but the statute of limitations was shaky. The next day, Victor escalated. A new email hit the foundation board, this time targeting Alex. Concerns about his leadership stability, influenced by family turmoil. Attached was a doctored photo of Alex at a college party, looking drunk, except I recognized the image. It was from his 21st birthday, a single beer in hand, edited to look worse. Victor was hitting us where it hurt most, Alex's future. Laura, enraged, called Evelyn. Mom, you have to see this for what it is. He's tearing us apart. Evelyn's voice was faint over the speaker. I'm trying, Laura. I don't know who he is anymore. I knew we had to move fast. I arranged another meeting, this time at our house. Laura, Alex, Evelyn, Harriet, and Vanessa. No Victor, no lawyer. I laid out everything. Tate's testimony, Ellen's crash, the ledger, the emails. Evelyn wept silently, clutching a tissue. Harriet, grim, said, I covered for him too long. I thought it was just business. Vanessa added, he tried to break me and Owen up, same tricks, fake texts, rumors. The room felt like a war council, united not by anger, but by clarity. We agreed on a plan. Confront Victor one last time, privately, with an ultimatum. Total withdrawal from the foundation and trust, or we'd hand Tate's evidence to a lawyer friend of Harriet's who specialized in white-collar crime. The meeting was set for Saturday, at a neutral law office downtown. I prepped like it was a pen test. Backups of all evidence on encrypted drives, copies with Sam as insurance, and a script to keep Victor off balance. But Friday night, a new wrinkle appeared. Patricia called, voice urgent. Someone has been asking about me in Olympia. Old guy, sounds like Tate, but working for Victor. He's digging for leverage to discredit us. My gut twisted. Tate wasn't as clean as he seemed. Either he was playing both sides or Victor had found him first. I called Sam. Check Tate's recent calls, bank records, anything. I need to know if he's flipped. Sam came back in hours. Tate got a wire transfer, 10 grand, from an offshore account linked to Victor's lawyer. He's hedging his bets. The betrayal stung, but it clarified things. Tate was a mercenary, not a savior. We'd use his evidence, but not trust his word. Saturday's meeting was tense. Victor arrived alone, no lawyer, his face a mask of defiance. Laura spoke first. You're done, Dad. Step down from the foundation, the trust, everything, or we go to the police with Ellen's case. I slid Tate's drive across the table, along with a printed summary. Victor didn't touch it. You're bluffing, he said. You won't destroy the family name. Alex leaned in. You already did that. We're just cleaning up.
Evelyn, voice breaking, added, "I'm ashamed of you, Victor. Sign it over, or I walk too." Victor's eyes flicked to me, cold and calculating. "You think you've won, Ethan?" I met his gaze. "I don't care about winning. I care about them." I pointed to Laura and Alex. "Sign, or the next meeting's in court." He hesitated, then signed the transfer papers Harriet's lawyer had prepped. Full control to Laura and Alex, effective immediately. He stood, voice low. "You'll regret this." I didn't blink. "Try me." As he left, the room exhaled. Laura hugged Evelyn, who whispered, "I should have seen it sooner." Alex gripped my shoulder. "Thanks, Dad." But I wasn't celebrating. Victor's parting shot meant he wasn't done. Tate's double dealing was proof. Victor was still pulling strings, even from the sidelines.
Victor Hale's signature on the transfer papers should have been the endgame. But in my line of work, you never trust a system to stay secure without testing its defenses. Victor wasn't the type to slink away quietly. He'd built a life rigging outcomes, and his parting words, "You'll regret this," weren't a bluff. They were a promise. I knew he'd strike again, and when he did, it would be surgical, aimed at fracturing the fragile unity Laura, Alex, and I had forged. What I didn't expect was how fast he'd move, or how low he'd go. 2 days after the meeting, a new email landed in my inbox, forwarded from the Kingston Foundation's board. It was a whistleblower-style report, anonymous, accusing me of siphoning funds from the Foundation's accounts during my advisory role. Attached were forged bank statements showing transfers to an offshore account in my name, dated weeks before Victor's ousting. The amounts were modest, $20,000 here, $15,000 there, but enough to look suspicious without triggering immediate audits. It was clever. Paint me as a thief, discredit my evidence against Victor, and destabilize Laura and Alex's control. In cybersecurity, this was a classic false flag. Plant fake evidence to shift blame. I recognized the handiwork. Ronald Tate, Victor's fixer, now playing double agent. Laura read the email over my shoulder, her breath catching. "Ethan, this isn't real, is it?" I shook my head. "Fabricated. Look at the timestamps. They're off by a millisecond, a telltale sign of digital tampering." Alex, pacing the living room, was livid. "He's framing you, Dad. We need to go to the cops now." I held up a hand. "Not yet. Victor wants us to react emotionally. Rush in, make noise, look guilty. We stay calm, trace the source, and hit back harder." I called Sam Torres, the retired detective, and briefed him on the new attack. "Tate's involved," I said. "He's working for Victor again, planting this to flip the narrative." Sam grunted. "Tate's slippery, but he's not perfect. Send me the email headers. I'll dig into the metadata. And check your Foundation access logs. If they're framing you, they'll have left a trail." I spent the night dissecting the forged statements. The offshore account was real, but inactive. Opened in my name, but never used. A quick dive into the dark web showed it was purchased from a data breach broker, likely by Tate, using stolen credentials from a hack I reported years ago. Sloppy, but effective, unless you knew where to look. Meanwhile, Laura rallied the family. She called Evelyn, Harriet, and Vanessa for an emergency meeting at our house. Evelyn arrived first, eyes red but resolute. She checked the Foundation's accounts. "No money's missing. This is Victor's doing, isn't it?" Laura nodded, handing her the forged statements. Harriet, scanning them, snorted. "He's desperate. These are amateur." Vanessa, quieter, added, "He tried this with Owen once. Fake invoices to make him look reckless. We need to end this." Sam called back at midnight. "Got something. The email came from a burner account, but the IP traces to a motel in Spokane, Tate's turf. And the Foundation's server logs show an unauthorized login attempt 2 weeks ago from the same motel. Someone tried to backdate transactions in your name." I grinned, grim but satisfied. Tate's getting careless. Sam wasn't so sure. Victor's behind it, but Tate's the weak link. Lean on him, hard.
He'll crack before Victor does. We decided to confront Tate first, not Victor. If we could flip him, we'd have a direct line to Victor's endgame. Laura and I drove to Spokane that morning with Alex. He'd insisted, saying, "I'm done sitting out. This is my family, too." We found Tate at the same diner, same booth, looking twitchier than before. He saw us and froze, coffee mug halfway to his mouth. "Didn't expect you back," he muttered as we sat. I slid a printout of the forged bank statements across the table. "You planted these," I said. "Bad move. The timestamps are off and the IP traces to you." Tate's eyes darted, but he didn't deny it. "Victor pays better than you," he said, voice low. "What do you want?" Laura leaned in, her voice like ice. "The truth. All of it. Or we hand your files, Ellen's crash, the payments, your notes, to the feds." Alex added, "And we'll make sure every PI in the state knows you're a snitch." Tate flinched. I pushed harder. "You're not loyal to Victor. You're loyal to cash. Name your price to turn." He hesitated, then sighed. 10 grand, and you keep my name out of it." I nodded, pulling out the same envelope I'd used before, now restocked. Talk. Tate spilled everything. Victor had hired him a week after the family meeting, offering $50,000 to frame me for embezzlement. The plan was simple: discredit me, destabilize Laura's control of the foundation, and paint Alex as too young to lead. Tate had used his old contacts to forge the bank statements, but Victor micromanaged every detail, even dictating the email's wording. "He's obsessed," Tate said. "Thinks he can still win if he buries you." Tate handed over a burner phone with texts from Victor, timestamps, instructions, even a photo of the offshore account setup. It was a gold mine, but I wasn't naive. "If you're lying," I told him, "this goes public and you're done." He nodded, pale. "I'm out after this. Victor's not worth the heat." We left him in the diner, the burner phone in my pocket, my recorder still running. Back home, we planned the final move. Victor's frame job was his last gambit, but it left him exposed. The burner phone's texts, combined with Tate's files and our existing evidence, were enough to sink him, legally and socially. But Laura wanted closure, not chaos. "No press," she said. "No cops. We confront him, make him leave for good, and rebuild without his shadow." Alex agreed, though his fists clenched. "I want him to face it, all of us, together." The final confrontation was set for Sunday at the Kingston estate, but not in the dining room. We chose the study, Victor's domain, where he'd spun his webs for decades. Only the core family came: Laura, Alex, Evelyn, Harriet, Vanessa, and me. Victor arrived last. No lawyer, no allies, just a man who'd run out of moves but didn't know it yet. He sat behind his mahogany desk, hands folded, trying to project control. "This is getting tiresome," he said. "What now?" I didn't speak first. Laura did. "You tried to frame me, Ethan." She tossed the forged statements onto the desk. "You used Tate, again, to tear us apart." Alex slid the burner phone next to them. "Your texts, Grandpa. You planned it all." Evelyn, voice trembling, added, "I trusted you, Victor. Even after Ellen, I believed you. But this?" She gestured to the evidence. "You're done." Victor's face didn't crack, but his hands shook. "You're overreacting," he said. "This is just business." Harriet stood up, voice cold. "Business doesn't kill people. Ellen wasn't business. Ethan isn't business." Vanessa laid out Tate's files, Ellen's notes, the ledger, the memo about disposal. "You built a cage. We're dismantling it." I spoke last, calm but final. "You have two choices, Victor. Leave Seattle, cut all ties with the foundation and trust, and live out your days quietly. Or we take this to the authorities. Ellen's crash, the fraud, everything. You won't walk away." I placed a single USB drive on the desk, labeled Checkmate.
It held every piece of evidence, encrypted but ready to send to Sam's lawyer friend if needed. Victor stared at the drive, then at me. "You think you've outsmarted me," he said, voice low. I met his gaze. "I don't care about winning. I care about them." I pointed to Laura and Alex. "Sign, or the next meeting's in court." He hesitated, then signed the resignation letter Harriet's lawyer had drafted. Full control to Laura and Alex, effective immediately. He stood, voice low. "You'll regret this." I didn't blink. "Try me." As he left, the room exhaled. Laura hugged Evelyn, who whispered, "I should have seen it sooner." Alex gripped my shoulder. "Thanks, Dad." But I wasn't celebrating. Victor's parting shot meant he wasn't done. Tate's double dealing was proof. Victor was still pulling strings, even from the sidelines. 6 months later, Laura and I sat on our porch, sipping peppermint tea, watching the Seattle skyline glow. The foundation was thriving under her leadership, funding artists who'd been overlooked, just like we'd dreamed. Alex's startup secured new investors, free of Victor's shadow. I opened my journal, writing, "Truth doesn't shout. It waits, and when it blooms, it's unstoppable." I looked at Laura, her hand in mine, and knew we weren't just free, we were home. Have you ever fought a quiet battle and won? Share your story in the comments. If you've been underestimated or betrayed but rose above, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge with Noah for more tales of family feuds, broken trust, and justice served cold.